One of the primary complaints about UFO footage is its consistent blurriness. Despite advancements in camera technology, many UFO videos and photos remain grainy and indistinct. This lack of clarity frustrates viewers who seek definitive proof of this phenomena. The blurry quality often leads to debates about the authenticity and reliability of the footage, with skeptics arguing that it is difficult to discern whether the objects in question are genuinely extraordinary or simply misidentified conventional objects. However, recent footage shared by Zona Desconhecida is being labeled as some of the clearest evidence we have of a UFO. The individual in question posted the video on their YouTube channel, saying that they were leaving a bakery on Sunday the 21st of July when they saw a mysterious object hovering in the sky above Curitiba. At the time, they couldn't explain what it was, and so quickly grabbed their Nikon B700 camera that is equipped with a 60x zoom. They stopped the car and started recording, not knowing that due to the camera's quality, they were about to capture some of the clearest UFO footage of all time.
Achava o carro aqui, mano.
Despite advancements in smartphone technology, capturing clear images of unidentified flying objects remains a significant challenge. Smartphone cameras, despite their impressive megapixel counts and sophisticated software, have inherent limitations due to their small sensors and lenses. The small sensor size limits the amount of light that can be captured, which is crucial for taking clear photos, especially in low-light conditions. The small lenses, while convenient for compact phone designs, do not offer the same clarity and focus capabilities as larger lenses found in dedicated cameras. During the occurrence of the overwhelming majority of UFO sightings, observers are unprepared to document them. Typically, individuals will utilize their smartphone's camera to record video or take pictures of the objects. However, phone cameras exhibit poor zoom capabilities, leading to consistently fuzzy footage. Only a small number of individuals possess a high-quality Nikon camera. Unlike optical zoom, which physically adjusts the lens to magnify the image, digital zoom simply enlarges the pixels in a photo, leading to a loss of resolution and detail. When trying to capture a distant object in the sky, such as a UFO, users often rely on digital zoom, resulting in blurry and pixelated images. This limitation makes it difficult to discern specific details of the object, which are critical for credible analysis. Shutter speed is another critical factor in capturing clear images of moving objects. Many smartphone cameras have limited control over shutter speed, and the default settings may not be fast enough to capture a rapidly moving UFO without motion blur. Motion blur occurs when the object moves faster than the shutter can open and close, leading to streaks and an unclear image. The UFO was distinctly disc-shaped, with a metallic sheen. It hovered silently, making no discernible noise, and moved with a smooth, controlled motion that seemed unlike any known aircraft. Realizing the significance of what he was witnessing, the individual immediately began recording. The camera, equipped with a high-resolution lens, captured the object in remarkable detail. They zoomed in, focusing on the edges and the subtle movements of the UFO, ensuring that every possible detail was documented. The video is currently gaining traction on social media due to how astonishingly clear the footage is. The disc-shaped UFO was visible in sharp detail, its metallic surface glinting under the urban lights. Unlike the typical blurry and grainy UFO footage, the video showed the object clearly, allowing viewers to observe its shape, texture, and movements without ambiguity. As of right now, many are saying that the clear video footage represents a significant breakthrough in UFO documentation. For decades, UFO footage has been plagued by poor quality images and videos, which have fueled skepticism and hindered serious scientific inquiry. The clarity of this footage provides a rare opportunity for researchers to study a UFO in detail, potentially advancing our understanding of these mysterious phenomena. The high quality of the video also enhances its credibility. Skeptics often dismiss UFO sightings due to the lack of clear evidence, but the footage in question challenges this skepticism. The clarity and detail of the footage have captivated audiences worldwide, sparking renewed interest and debate. For many, the video serves as compelling evidence that UFOs are real and worthy of serious consideration. The widespread media coverage has also helped to normalize discussions about UFOs, reducing the stigma often associated with such topics. Brazil's history with UFO sightings dates back several decades, with significant reports emerging as early as the 1950s. The country has long been considered a hotspot for unexplained aerial phenomena, and Curitiba has been no exception. Early reports in the region often described unusual lights and objects in the sky, sparking curiosity and fear among locals. In the past decade, sightings in Curitiba have surged, drawing increased attention from both the public and UFO researchers. These recent reports are notable for their frequency, consistency, and the detailed descriptions provided by eyewitnesses. Unlike earlier sporadic sightings, the modern wave has led to a more organized effort to document and understand these phenomena. One of the most compelling aspects of the UFO sightings in Curitiba is the consistency of the eyewitness accounts. Many individuals have reported seeing disc-shaped, spherical or triangular objects exhibiting behaviors that defy conventional explanations. These objects are often described as moving at incredible speeds, hovering silently, or making abrupt directional changes that would be impossible for known aircraft. Several high-profile sightings have further bolstered the credibility of these reports. For instance, in 2018, a well-known local businessman reported his encounter with a disc-shaped UFO hovering over the city. In another notable incident in 2020, a group of hikers reported seeing a large, glowing sphere that emitted a pulsating light. The hikers, who included a retired Air Force pilot, described the object as performing maneuvers that would be impossible for conventional aircraft, further adding to the credibility of their account. The surge in sightings has prompted local researchers to take a closer look. Groups like the Brazilian Center for Flying Saucer Research have been actively investigating the reports, interviewing witnesses, and analyzing available footage and photographs. These investigations have consistently found no evidence of hoaxes or misidentifications of conventional aircraft. The scientific community has also shown a growing interest in the sightings above Curitiba. While mainstream scientists often approach the phenomenon with skepticism, the volume and consistency of the reports have led to calls for a more systematic study. Some researchers have suggested deploying sophisticated monitoring equipment to capture high-quality data, including infrared cameras and radar systems, to better understand the nature of these objects. Public perception of UFO sightings in Curitiba has evolved significantly. While initial reactions were often skeptical or fearful, the consistency and credibility of recent reports have led to a growing acceptance that these phenomena warrant serious consideration. Public forums and local media regularly discuss the sightings, reflecting a community that is increasingly open to the possibility of advanced visitors. Among the various phenomena associated with UFO sightings, one of the most intriguing and scientifically significant aspects is the reported electromagnetic effects. These effects, which include disruptions to electronic devices, power outages, and unusual magnetic field readings, provide a compelling avenue for investigation. The association between UFOs and electromagnetic effects is not a recent development. Historical accounts from the early 20th century onward have documented instances where UFO sightings coincided with unexplained electromagnetic disturbances. In more recent times, numerous credible reports have detailed encounters where UFOs appeared to cause significant electromagnetic disruptions. Physical evidence of EMEs associated with UFO sightings includes scorched vegetation, melted or damaged electronic components, and residual magnetic anomalies. In some cases, soil and plant samples from alleged UFO landing sites have shown unusual properties, such as altered isotopic ratios or magnetic characteristics, suggesting exposure to intense electromagnetic fields. One leading hypothesis is that UFOs represent advanced technology, potentially of extraterrestrial origin, which utilizes electromagnetic fields for propulsion or other purposes. The observed electromagnetic effects could be a byproduct of these technologies. For instance, if a UFO uses a form of electromagnetic propulsion, the intense fields generated might interfere with nearby electronics and magnetic instruments. At approximately 8 in the evening on February 26, 1975, two unidentified individuals observed an unusual aerial phenomenon while camping near Lake Sorell in Tasmania, Australia, during a fishing trip. The report states that the primary witness, referred to as Mr. Smith, and his friend observed three objects emerging intermittently from the clouds, prompting them to speculate that they were observing an aeroplane of some sort. Nevertheless, as he continued to observe these mysterious objects, he increasingly recognized that he was not observing a typical aeroplane. He directed his friend's focus onto the object of his gaze. From their perspective, it seemed as though they were observing two huge unidentified flying objects, together with a little smaller one. They seemed to be heading towards Lake Sorell and eventually halted over Dog's Head Point. The clouds momentarily obscured them again before dissipating, revealing the objects moving in the direction of Mount Penny. As they receded into the distance, they observed that every item had a crimson, throbbing light on its lower surface, while a sequence of reddish-orange lights adorned the periphery of the vehicle. Subsequently, they were aware that one of the objects was moving towards them. Upon initial sighting, they approximated the distance of the object to be between 2 and 2.5 miles. Within a few seconds, it had moved a distance of little more than 1 mile and was positioned only 500 feet above the lake. At this proximity, it seemed like the object had a minimum width of 200 feet. An immense luminosity abruptly emanated from the entity and illuminated the ocean surface just beneath it. The luminosity was of such intensity that the observers attested to experiencing ocular discomfort when gazing at it for an extended duration. Subsequently, the light exhibited a curved trajectory, prompting Smith to assert that it resembled a meticulous exploration of the waters and unequivocally affirming that the light beam was under intelligent guidance. At that moment, the two guys were aware of the car radio, which they had been using because their own device was unable to receive a signal. The radio abruptly started emitting a chaotic and overwhelming sound of intense static noise. Smith reached into the item, maintaining visual contact, and rotated the dial in an effort to tune into a different station. However, only static was heard. Following a brief period of time, the illumination abruptly ceased. Once their vision had adapted to the abrupt cessation of the intense radiance, the two individuals were able to perceive the object, which remained suspended above the body of water. Immediately, it rapidly accelerated and swiftly moved away with remarkable velocity. Just at that instant, the UFO in closest proximity to them rapidly accelerated, as did the second unidentified object suspended near Mount Penny. Upon glancing at his timepiece, Smith observed that it was 9:30 in the evening, indicating that the interaction had lasted for a duration of 45 minutes. On the next day, the two individuals saw a cluster of anglers who were stationed approximately 1 mile distant at Silver Plains. These fishermen had also witnessed the peculiar entities the previous night. The witnesses were informed that they had been present inside the tent when a sudden and dazzling radiance illuminated the surroundings, including the interior of the tent. Furthermore, it is noteworthy that less than a month later, specifically on the evening of March 14th, another sighting of an unidentified flying object in the vicinity of Lake Sorell was reported. During this instance, Mr. Napek, accompanied by his 2 sons and their 2 companions, observed an unusual, luminous being at a relatively close proximity to their camping site in a clearing, situated around 1 mile away from the lake. According to the witnesses, the item had a shape similar to that of a football, or an oval, and its width was estimated to be around 50 feet. The mysterious object emitted a luminous yellow glow on its bottom, intensifying as its speed increased. The mystery of Lake Michigan. Over time, an increasing number of UFO sightings occurred in the state of Michigan. Based on the records from Michigan UFO Central, a notable incident occurred on the evening of August 15, 1970, at approximately 10:30 in the evening in the vicinity of Good Heart. During the incident, the individual, who was staying overnight at their parents' residence, experienced an abrupt urge to drive their vehicle to the shores of Lake Michigan. The night was considerably cloudless, making it an opportune time for stargazing. While engaged in their task, they observed a conspicuously luminous object traversing the nocturnal expanse above. The witness became aware that they were observing something unusual when they noticed the peculiar object descending in a specific path. He commenced observing the item using his telescope and was able to see numerous intricate features. The object had a clearly defined circular shape and was adorned with lights in shades of orange, yellow, green, and blue. There was a window on one side that emitted light on the opposite side. Furthermore, he possessed the remarkable ability to observe multiple persons engaged in movement within the spacecraft through the window, actively controlling a console of some sort. The item descended farther and came to a stop along the water's edge, approximately 100 feet distant from the witness. He stayed in his current position, observing the object with great focus. Nevertheless, after around 15 minutes, devoid of any indications of motion, he proceeded towards the mysterious object. As he approached, he observed a noticeable change in the air, which felt distinctly warmer. At a distance of approximately 50 feet from the item, he abruptly halted upon hearing a metallic sound. Despite the darkness, there was sufficient illumination for him to perceive a ramp emerging from the side of the spacecraft and reaching towards the ground. The ramp appeared peculiar, as there was no visible aperture along the side of the thing. Due to inexplicable motives, he proceeded towards the spacecraft, eventually ascending the ramp and commencing his journey. As he proceeded along the ramp and neared the aircraft, it seemed to disintegrate before his eyes, while simultaneously a peculiar aperture materialized on the side of the object. He entered the entrance and discovered a peculiar room constructed from terracotta-hued stone. In addition, he observed that the space was illuminated by a gentle radiance emanating from the walls. Several individuals who assert to have been aboard a UFO report that numerous aspects of the craft exhibit stone-like characteristics, such as the terracotta-colored walls. Additionally, a noteworthy observation is that the witnesses were able to discern the origin of the illumination, which seemed to emanate from within the walls. In addition, he saw that the interior of the craft was rather chilly, and there was an aroma in the air that closely resembled the scents of cinnamon and sage. Upon surveying his surroundings, he observed that the chamber was an elongated corridor that extended around the corner in both directions. Scattered around the path, in every direction, were numerous handles, levers, and openings that appeared to be placed haphazardly. He promptly made a decision and opted to go towards the left. As he proceeded, he observed that the aroma of cinnamon and sage seemed to intensify significantly. Upon reaching a door obstructing his path, he became aware that another door was simultaneously shutting behind him. Upon glancing below, he observed an oddly positioned transparent area beneath him. He had a clear view of the Big Rock nuclear plant and a portion of Lake Michigan. It is noteworthy that this incident occurred in close proximity to a nuclear facility, which is a common occurrence in many UFO encounters. At that moment, he observed a plate resembling a window embedded in one of the walls. He looked closely and observed numerous peculiar humanoid beings with very huge heads. They seemed to be standing at a control panel of some kind and were fully engrossed in it. Each individual was dressed in an identical form-fitting outfit that emitted a soft blue glow. Subsequently, while he persistently observed his seeming inadvertent hosts, one of them abruptly pivoted and made direct eye contact with him. His vision was now clear enough to perceive the facial features distinctly. The eyes were notably expansive and deep, lacking a discernible nose and possessing remarkably flat cheeks. Then, things became even more peculiar. He experienced a sudden, deliberate glimpse in his head of himself, as perceived by a strange entity. Suddenly, he found himself being escorted into a separate room by one of the creatures, where he was promptly seated in an unfamiliar chair. While seated in the chair, the individual saw rapid and fleeting 3D mental images of diverse objects, leaving him with limited recollection. An entity approached him, carrying a mysterious cube filled with a translucent fluid. He was instructed to consume it, and he promptly followed the instruction. The beings engaged in telepathic communication with him, although he was only able to recall fragmented portions of the information. He remembered that the craft defied the laws of physics by being bigger on the inside than its external dimensions should have allowed. Additionally, he knew that the primary motive of these mysterious visitors for coming to Earth was the water supply. Suddenly, he found himself once again standing at the boundary of the water, just outside the vehicle. During the evening of March 8, 1994, an incident occurred where peculiar lights were observed in the sky spanning over 200 miles of Lake Michigan. This occurrence led to numerous sightings and subsequent reports made by the general public to the police and mutual UFO network. In addition, these calls originate from many individuals across the state, including police officers themselves. It is estimated that more than 100 individuals observed the peculiar luminous phenomena above one of North America's most mysterious lakes. The initial observers of the peculiar occurrences that evening were Darrell and Holly Graves, a married couple, along with their son, Joey. They were situated in their residence in Holland when they observed multiple luminous objects in the atmosphere at approximately 9:30 in the evening. Joey would recount to the local media how he rose from his seat, walked over to the couch, and gazed upwards at the sky. From the window above the barn across the street, he observed 6 lights. He described them as being red and white in color and in motion. Cindy Pravda, another witness, reported observing 4 peculiar lights resembling full moons hanging above the trees near her residence. 25 years later, she would affirm that she observed them for 30 minutes, vividly remembering that at one moment, one of them ventured onto the roadway and then returned to the original location. In 2019, she vividly remembered being certain that the lights she saw were not helicopters. They were very different from anything they had ever seen before. She described them as spherical, bright white, and with well-defined edges. Ultimately, after a period of relative stability, the light abruptly vanished. Jack Bushong, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, was the sole witness to the occurrences that evening. He was working alone at the Weather Service office in Muskegon on the specific night in question. The evening had commenced in a customary manner with no noteworthy occurrences to mention. Subsequently, the Ottawa County dispatcher received a phone call, having already received multiple reports of peculiar and extraordinary lights in the sky. Seeking guidance, they inquired about the possibility of any abnormal meteorological conditions that could account for the phenomenon. Subsequently, Bushong directed his focus on the radar system and transitioned it into manual control. Subsequently, he expressed to the media that the radar may be utilized in a manner similar to a spotlight. Shortly after, he successfully detected an object with the radar. Initially, there was only a single item being recorded, which was moving smoothly at a velocity of approximately 100 miles per hour. While observing the object, he abruptly realized that it had come to a halt and was now suspended in the air. Suddenly, and unexpectedly, the object rapidly ascended to an altitude of 5,000 feet, and then continued to ascend to 10,000 feet on a vertical trajectory. Simultaneously, a law enforcement officer was communicating via the dispatch line that they too saw the object ascending rapidly into the atmosphere. This is a sighting that has been observed by many witnesses from different locations, including several police officers. Additionally, a professional meteorologist has confirmed the sighting through radar data. Bushong observed the thing ascend, sensing that it was almost as if it was acknowledging his presence. Bushong observed several things on the radar screen at this juncture. Initially, they assumed a triangular configuration, before ultimately aligning themselves into a linear arrangement. He would calculate that they were distanced by around 20 kilometers. He stated that he observed one of the objects moving rapidly to another position, with the other objects subsequently following suit. 25 years later, he would describe how he observed either the objects hovering or moving rapidly at a high velocity. During certain phases, the objects would momentarily ascend to an altitude of 60,000 feet, thereby allowing Bushong to confidently reject the possibility that the reading was erroneous and merely a result of ground clutter. Bushong carefully monitored the readings for an extended period, tracing them to the southern region of Lake Michigan, where he reported witnessing numerous other occurrences. Overall, he spent over 2 hours observing sizable clusters of inexplicable things suspended in the air. He made a point of documenting that these items were floating above a certain region, which happened to be an unfrozen section of the water that was predominantly covered in ice due to the current season. The nature of the item remains unidentified, and the sightings continue to be inexplicable even after a span of 25 years. Subsequently, Bushong would subsequently communicate with the control tower at the neighboring Muskegon County Airport to inquire about any anomalous readings or reports they may have. Their response would indicate that they had officially registered 3 aircraft positioned in a formation at a distance. Nevertheless, these enigmatic autos lacked transponder codes. Michigan has had a disproportionately high number of UFO sightings over the years, along with other instances of short-lived increases in such encounters. During the spring of 1966, there were numerous reports of sightings of identical spacecraft. An interesting encounter took place on March 31, 1966, in close proximity to Vicksburg. According to an investigation regarding the occurrence, Jenno Udvardy was driving back to his residence during the early hours after finishing a late shift at his workplace. Upon reaching the top of the hill, he abruptly observed an unusual grouping of lights on the road. Initially, he harbored the belief that the luminosity emanated from an ambulance, leading him to infer the occurrence of an accident or collision, prompting him to gradually reduce his speed. At a distance of approximately 10 feet, he suddenly recognized that the ambulance was actually a disc-shaped object hovering slightly above the road. Despite being able to discern the form of the object, the intensity of the lights was so strong that it obscured any additional particulars. Udvardy was suddenly overwhelmed with a strong feeling of panic, prompting him to quickly shift the car backward. However, while doing so, he immediately observed a sudden and forceful blast of wind, severely shaking his vehicle. Subsequently, he observed what initially appeared to be an additional disc-shaped vehicle positioned behind his car. However, upon redirecting his attention forward, he observed that the object had indeed shifted its position from its original location to a position behind him, potentially elucidating the perceived occurrence of an abrupt blast of wind. After pausing briefly to collect his thoughts, he came to the realization that his car had stopped working. The report does not definitively specify whether this was due to the UFO or the actions of Udvardy himself. Upon realizing his immobility, he extended his hand towards the window handle and proceeded to lower it. Upon doing so, he perceived a faint resonating noise emanating from the exterior, reminiscent of a collective of bees in flight. This observation is intriguing, given this bee swarm-like resonance is a recurring element in numerous other encounters with unidentified flying objects. Within a few seconds of lowering the car window, the object swiftly ascended into the atmosphere at an astonishing speed and vanished into the nocturnal sky.